everyone, it's Natalie here. It's a Sunday morning and it's been a long week and it's the first day off I've had all week. I mean, I don't normally work Saturdays, but I needed to this week, and so I am rocking the Sunday sweatshirt look here. Um, yeah, and I really wanted to talk to everybody about various different things that are going on, and realized after I filmed like for over an hour, like, whoa, I'm gonna need to break these up into different chunks. So this is a chunk. Don't know which chunk you're going to be watching in which order, because I don't know which order I'm going to upload it. But suffice it to say, there have been a number of really interesting things going on, and yeah. I think this video, I'm just going to need to focus on talking to guys about the kind of destabilizing things that have happened with working on tarot, which is so interesting. I didn't expect that. It was not something I was going to expect. Anyhow, I suppose I really should have. I've been trying to do way too much, I think, is really what it comes down to. Way too much. That said, another thing that came up this week that was a little destabilizing was I had decided, about the time I was making that association with swords and the negativity and having difficulty structuring a new spread around it, right? That's based on the wisdom mandala, the five Buddhas, or the five Dakinis. I realized, wow, the swords are really negative in Rider-Waite-Smith. And as someone who doesn't, let's put it this way. I learned the Rider, the Waite-Smith, or the Smith-Waite system really, really closely first, I should say. It's the one I'm the most familiar with. I learned the majors with the Marseille deck, and then mistakenly believed, for a very long time, that the writer, that the majors are the same no matter where, no matter what deck you're working with, and started to recognize over the last week that's not necessarily the case. Just isn't. So I started to think okay, well, I know that the minors are not the same. And I've never been prone to want to read, the minors or the pips in a Marseille style deck with Rider-Waite meanings, right, or keywords. So when I first learned how to do the keyword system of learning the Rider-Waite, I remember that was a big game changer for me, and it was whoa, wait a minute, if I just have that keyword, I can draw it to mind, and it solves a lot of issues and problems. And if I start to find in readings with people that the keywords, are not always consistent, or they change, and I'm starting to notice that change is consistent, I can change the keyword. I've been through all of that. I started to think maybe I need in a very kind of Zen Buddhist, or at least Korean Zen, tradition, maybe I just need to look at it with fresh eyes. Maybe I need to come back to the, koan of what is it? What is it? What is it? Is it this? I don't know. Who knows? And so I started doing that. And of course, anytime you do that, it is a little destabilizing because it changes your perspective. But what it did this time that it doesn't always normally do is fill me with a lot of self-doubt. Maybe I don't really know the tarot. Maybe I never really learned it very well. Wow, look at how many people I might have, really done a disservice to back when I was reading, because I really didn't know what I was doing, etc. So all that stuff kind of was coming up. What I realized was okay, I can hold space around Marseille style decks, and keeping a really open mind about how do I use numerology, how do I use that sort of thing to access the pips a little bit more, and keep an open mind around what those mean, and maybe ascribe a newer way of thinking about them. But at the same time I was doing that, I had also just kind of gone, heck, if I'm going to do that with the Marseille deck, why don't I just do that with Rider-Waite-Smith and stop reading with Rider-Waite-Smith decks for a while? Because right now I really want to work with, the Thoth system, or the Thoth lineage. So, there's me thinking like, okay, this is a great opportunity to start, working with tarot of the spirit. Yay! Which it is, and it isn't at the same time. I'm just going to need to slow down, take a breath. And really, also, with the Marielle Tarot, which I have packaged in this nifty little doodah here, I've been carrying this with me all week because I decided, okay, this month I'm just going to work on my Marielle and get really grounded in that, in this deck's language. This deck has a language that is not really, it's definitely not the same as every other deck, and I can tell when I watch videos of like, oh, hey, people trimming them, reordering them, taking off, all the borders, etc., in order to read with the Marielle as more of like a, more of an oracle type deck. Yeah, I mean, she is challenging some, there's a lot of challenge in here. The way that she's presenting things. Again, this Nine of Swords is really about exaltation and rising back up to the heights after taking a really deep dive, right? Part of why I love this deck is because it speaks my language, and the language of my experience. So I'll come back to that a little bit later in this chat. Suffice it to say, that was on, I realized this week, first of all, number one, as I'm exploring this deck and how to read it, work with it, and become conversant and eventually, hopefully, fluent with it, both for myself and others. That is how deeply it affects me and how deeply the language of this deck affects me. And she is drawing on Rider-Waite-Smith, the Rider-Waite-Smith system. She's also drawing on Thoth. She's drawing on Marseille. She has taken really the language of the tarot and that journey, archetypally, psychologically, spiritually, the way it affects her, and the way it filtered through her own experience, and then she's rewritten it around that, if that makes sense. But because it resonates so deeply with my own experiences, I'm like, yeah, yes, let's go on that dive, right? Well, that's tough, that's a tough dive, because it means revisiting a lot of stuff that wasn't comfortable. I did learn this week, do not try and do a tarot pulse with this deck. Don't try to do anything really deep or meaningful with this deck beyond like 2, maybe 3 cards, or you're just going to feel overwhelmed because the way that she writes and the way the information is in there, as a new learner, it doesn't fly. It just doesn't work. And so for tarot pulse readings, I pull, this is now my best friend, because it's such a beautiful, amalgam of, the RWS, lineage and system, and a more kind of feminist, spiritual, and yet really grounded approach. So I did eventually figure that out, which I'm really grateful for. But in the meantime, it was destabilizing. Real destabilizing, because I how do I integrate all of this information? How am I supposed to draw any meaning from this? I don't know what to do. It's gotten a lot easier. I had a sub job this week where I was sitting in the, what do you call it? The in-school suspension room, which I really enjoyed, actually. I ended up finding a kid to help, find a way to pass his English class, and, he had trouble working on this paper, and he was obviously a really smart kid and just not getting along well with his English teacher. So it was like, dude, do not let Do not let that conflict stop you from being successful. You're a senior. Let's work on this. But in the meantime, when I wasn't doing that, I was here doing, I have my nifty Swifty journal here. It's not really very swift, but it is Nift. It's a little journal I made, I don't know, a few years ago, actually. And it's got all these strings in it because I sewed a lot of, come back, there we go. Sewed a lot of papers together within it to form, and I just love making books. So what I've got is, whoop, there we go. The, start of writing down keywords and various observations from the Mariel Tarot. And here's my continued thing, where it's happening. And I had started by just doing, whatever it was that came up in a, what do you call it? A tarot pulse reading. I had one tarot pulse on Monday that actually worked, and you can kind of see there. And it was all right. I could take it in, but it did take, because I don't know this system yet, right? And I feel like hers is really, or didn't know her deck's language. I think I've got to be careful about my nomenclature here, because I do think nomenclature is important. The way we name things really impacts stuff. So at any rate, because I'm less familiar with the nomenclature of that deck, or with the, you know what I'm saying? It's Mercury retrograde. What can we do? Yeah, it's less familiar, so it just required probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to do a tarot pulse and really get to the root of what are those cards, what are they saying, how do I simplify and boil down those key words, and then it was a lot. It was totally worth it, but I don't have the space and time to do that every day. Which is too bad, but it's just the truth that right now I just probably don't consistently have the time to do that every day. But it was well worth doing. I also pulled out, I gotta do journal fun times here. I had started making a little Zentangle while I was admitting people, and then started to realize, wait a minute, I can start filling up some of those spaces with quotes and language and words and bits of information. So here were little bits of information from the deck that relates to some of the cards. And anyway, I've just been having fun playing with my little tarot journal here, and figuring out new ways to use it. And it's a lot of fun. So I had most of the day to really delve into the book and into the guidebook and really scribble all over it. I didn't even go to the majors because the majors are pretty well defined in this. She may have some creative spins on them, but they're not as disorienting as the words, or as the what am I saying? The minors. That's what I want to say. So I started, in there with minors, Ace of Wands. Oops. And you can kind of see, I really am someone who scribbles and over and kind of ultimately kind of trashes a book when I dig into it. So I need to do that if I'm really going to learn and figure out what is it that she's looking at here? How is she talking about it? I will write all over the pages and everything. I just have to, because that's just, I'm very kinesthetic as well as intellectual. So if I don't find ways of connecting things and writing them, they don't go in as well. So, unless I'm hearing them, that's different, very different. So I spent a lot of time this week doing that, and it was great. So I've just decided to continue to work with the Mariel Tarot on a daily basis. Just do a daily draw. Give myself a time limit and just say okay, this will be what flying card. This will be what I do for the month of March, and that it's totally okay. Just gonna get that card. Oh. King of Cups is what fell to the floor there. You have to come back to that later. I'm just going to stick it out and work with this deck for, in depth for 1 month. Continue to study, all of the minors, and work towards a working series of keywords that are specific and unique to this deck, and its author and its own language, and just start there and give myself the time to do that. And if I feel like after March I want to shift decks and shift focus, and learn another, a completely different deck, I can do that. That's always possible, because I do feel called very much to work with Tarot of the Spirit. I did do a really beautiful Tarot Pulse reading, which I did record, and I don't know if I'm going to bother to upload it. Uploading time is so slow where I am. It's so slow, it's not even funny. So I'll have to wait on that and see. But I did want to just share. There's a lot to share, but this is the first one. Just sharing my journey with these cards, and just with trying to come back to, like, it's all good. You don't have to master all of it right now. And just I guess not restabilizing, but just, well, yeah, maybe just like regrounding, I guess. That's a good one. Regrounding in what I already know. So that's where we are. Okay. I'm going to move on now. So I wish all of you a beautiful week, and I will hopefully hear back from some of you. And as always, your feedback, your insights, anything that you pick up or see in what I'm saying or whatever that I'm not seeing, please feel free to comment. I'm always very open to hearing. So have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye.